Trump's campaign was wild, but it worked. Few predicted his victory, but it happened. And as Inauguration Day approached, Americans wondered, would the gravity of the office change Trump's style? They didn't have to wait long to find out.
We are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
As the freshly minted president finished, the Washington Post dropped a story headline: the campaign to impeach President Trump has begun.
On Inauguration Day, went to see our offices, put my stuff down, immediately summoned to the Oval Office. The newly sworn-in President Trump wanted to start signing executive orders that day. I love the fact that I worked for a president who had never done the job as president, obviously, but as a businessman.
His first weeks in office, he took steps to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, placed travel bans on immigrants, pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, reinstated the Keystone Pipeline, and nominated Neil Gorsuch from his list of conservative justices to the Supreme Court.
Judge Gorsuch has outstanding legal skills, a brilliant mind, tremendous discipline, and has earned bipartisan support.
He's trying to restore America. You can hear that phrase, oh, he wants to turn back the clock to the bad old days. No, Trump doesn't want to do that. But he does want to take our institutions, which are under attack, and try to make them functioning again.
To accomplish that, he needed aides who knew how to get things done. But the candidate who vowed to drain the swamp was having a hard time staffing up his White House.
The typical way it works in both political parties, when a new administration comes in, is the people who get the choice plum jobs, the senior White House staff, directors of agencies, and so on. They tend to be people who were in a prior administration of the same party, but maybe one rung down. So if you were an assistant secretary, you may come back as an undersecretary, and so on. That's the way it's always been done. Well, in the spring of 2016, some prominent Republican foreign policy types organized these letters, but they were basically letters saying, we don't support Donald Trump, and we vow not to work for him if he becomes president.
Kellyanne Conway signed on as a senior counselor to the president, but worried about some of her new colleagues.
President Trump believed that we were all there for the same reason he was there. We were willing to give up some money and privacy, maybe even personal security, to try to get things done for the great people of this country. And not everyone there was there for the right reasons. If Donald Trump has a blind spot, it was in personnel. And Ronald Reagan is correct, personnel is policy.
Trump, the businessman, was ready to work, but he quickly realized Washington doesn't operate like a swashbuckling New York real estate firm.
Trump had to learn how to be president, literally. Rex Tillerson gave an interview and he said, well, you know, Trump is the kind of guy who likes things to get done. And Trump would say, well, you know, I want to do X. And Tillerson would say, look, you know, I understand what you want to do that. But you can't do it that way. You have to go about doing it this way. And so Trump never wanted to break the law, but he had no idea other than the fact that I want to get it done. What's the shortest route between 2 points? Let's do it.
He learned on day one he would get no help from the press. The same mainstream media and never-Trumpers who challenged his every move on the campaign trail were now out for his administration.
A full reporter, now at the AP, then at Time magazine, reported incorrectly, falsely, an hour into the job, that President Trump had ordered the removal of the bust of Martin Luther King from the Oval Office. It was right there. It never moved an inch, but just lies from moment one.
The bust of Martin Luther King, which was falsely reported that it was taken out of the office.
That would be far from the worst. The day after the inauguration, the largest single-day protest took place, with nearly 500,000 women traveling to Washington, D.C. to denounce the new president.
That's our house! That's our house!
I don't think there's ever been a president, maybe Abraham Lincoln is the one exception, who suffered more at the hands of people who hate him. And it's different today than it was for Lincoln because it's 24/7, and so it's relentless.
Michael Anton, who joined the Trump administration, can attest to the unparalleled criticism hurled at President Trump.
So I had already been in the George W. Bush administration in the same, or a very similar role in the same office. Before there was Trump derangement syndrome, there was Bush derangement syndrome, where people were just deranged in their hatred of George W. Bush. And the opposition to him was so fierce. And yet it was nothing like what we faced in the Trump admin.
Not just from the press, but Congress and his own FBI, too. It was still investigating his campaign for Russia collusion. Agents interviewed Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, while their bosses wondered whether the goal was to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired.
I think General Michael Flynn is one of the most decent, honorable patriots that I know. I think he was targeted for extraordinarily political purposes.
Ginned up suspicions about Russia collusion did lead to Flynn getting fired. It was a rocky start.
Because of Trump's more freewheeling style, and I think because of his lack of experience in elective office, where it was a very freewheeling White House. Freewheeling is the polite way to put it, disorganized would be the impolite way to put it. Whereas one thing I can tell you about the George W. Bush White House is it was pretty much the most organized place I ever worked in my life. Every meeting began on time to the minute, ended on time to the minute. Trump White House was not like that.
Thank you all very much.
Some found that atmosphere exhilarating.
And people were always shocked at how much FaceTime, how much Oval Office time, how much time in the Roosevelt Room or in another skiff we would have with President Trump on Air Force One. Doors open, calls you in. Bring the press up, let's see what the fake news wants today. That's democracy in action.
Just a few months into Trump's presidency, he was confronted with his first foreign policy crisis.
On Tuesday, Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad launched a horrible chemical weapons attack on innocent civilians.
The devastation in Syria stunned the president.
And Trump was really upset, devastated by looking at those people. And he called for the bombing there. And of course, then they stopped using the gas. So there's a lot of compassion in Trump.
Trump ordered an attack. It was successful, but quickly overshadowed by the left's uproar over his next move.
Tonight, Democrats are essentially threatening to shut down the government over President Trump's call for seed money for his border wall with Mexico.
Finishing the wall would be a sticking point throughout the Trump presidency. He promised it would span 1,000 miles of the border, and he fought to build it, but ultimately was unable to complete it.
His presidency, the core dualism is easy to see. There's Trump the bombast, and there's Trump busy building border walls, trying to get immigration settled, all the things that he ran on that he wanted to try to do. So there's the bombast, and there's Trump quietly going about trying to get these things done in the face of ferocious opposition.
The opposition included the never-ending Russia collusion investigation.
The reports of constant contact between the top officials in the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence are chilling. I've been in Congress for a long time. I've never seen anything like this.
After Trump fired FBI Director James Comey, Comey leaked memos to the New York Times to get a special counsel appointed. It worked.
Welcome back.
The deep state was determined to tear him down, not give him any breathing room, not give him any benefit of any doubt, and they went after him on the flimsiest of evidence. Russia was a pathetic scandal.
There's no question that he did not recognize that the elements of the intelligence agencies and other elements of his own government would collude together to remove him as president.
It completely crippled his ability to pursue the policy toward Russia that he wanted to pursue, which his enemies will interpret as, well, he just wanted to give Putin everything he wanted. That's completely not true at all. He wanted to see if he could improve relations between the United States and Russia.
The ramification of the Russian investigation ran deep.
I worked in the White House with people much younger than me. This bankrupted some of them, having to get lawyers, having to spend hours preparing for depositions about things that just weren't true. How dare all of those creatures force people to spend money, time, angst on disproving a lie?
It seems some of the people out to get Trump were working in his own administration.
White Houses are inherently leaky places, but I had never seen leaks like this. The Trump White House was dominated by leaks that were deliberately targeted against the president.
The leaks that should concern everyone came from President Trump's calls with the president of Mexico, the leak of him meeting with the Russian ambassador in the Oval Office. So I think those national security leaks are very concerning.
The president was going to give a major speech at a summit of all the Islamic nations. Literally while we're on Air Force One on our way to Riyadh, the whole body of the speech is leaked to the press. I mean, a breach of security so unbelievable, I've never seen anything like it. No one should ever be in that position. You can't even trust your own staff.
Kellyanne believes during her time at the White House, she learned how to spot a leaker.
People who are leak aren't people who go on TV. But the people who don't go on TV, the people who say, enemy of the people, F the media, fake news, they're the ones talking to the press all day long. Steve Bannon was a big leaker. Reince's whole operation was leaking. That's just a fact. The president knows that. He's very clever, and I don't know if they know that he knows, but he knows. And what are you leaking other than to try to make yourself look smart or look good, or try to make your boss not look so good? Now, I will also say I like to tease Donald Trump that he was leaker in chief, because there are plenty of times that he'd say, call so-and-so or get so-and-so on the phone, and a reporter would be on the phone, much to their great surprise and enjoyment, and he would tell them a couple things and then be in the paper the next day or on Twitter the next hour.
While Trump seemed to love a free-for-all, some believe the leaks, the Russia investigation, and overall disorganization became too much for even him to handle.
The early chaos, I think, got on the president's nerves, and so he brought in a new chief of staff. It was a Marine four-star general who had been the Secretary of Homeland Security, named John Kelly. And Kelly was a very orderly guy. You don't get to 4 stars in the Marine Corps without being a very orderly guy. And he came in with the specific charge, tasking of imposing order on the White House, which he tried to do.
Trump suffered a major blow to his policy agenda when his effort to repeal Obamacare failed in the Senate. Senator John McCain reneged on his campaign pledge and voted with the Democrats.
One of his press secretaries said, we're trying to do things and get things done, and the only thing we hear is, it's bad, you're wrong, it's not enough, you're not doing anything right, it's demoralizing. And of course the point is, it's meant to be demoralizing. That's precisely its point. It's meant to keep Trump from doing what he wants to do, which is to change the underlying understandings of policy points of view. He's trying to take the quote-unquote conventional wisdom and substitute something that's updated and more modern, a restoration. So he's not unhinged. He's fighting back.
Trump made the foreign policy establishment nervous over his verbal jousting with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un.
They will be met with fire and fury.
President Trump preaching hell and damnation against North Korean ruler Kim Jong-un, a reaction to the rogue nation's new nuclear capabilities and threats.
He was blunt at the United Nations, too.
As President of the United States, I will always put America first. Just like you, as the leaders of your countries, will always and should always put your countries first.
They said, folks, it's America first because I am the president of the United States of America. And even when his critics would try to pretend that was somehow racist or xenophobic or backward last century, he'd say, no, it means American workers, American industry, America trade deals, America patriotism, and America herself first.
Soon after Trump's UN address, Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico. As the son of a Puerto Rican immigrant, Geraldo Rivera rushed to the catastrophe.
They are all without power. They are, half of them, without water. They have to stand on line 6-8 hours to get gasoline. Food is being imported because the agricultural crop has been entirely wiped out.
I was reporting on my own personal family's dismay and dilemma. The president watching, wanted to go.
It was on this trip Geraldo saw firsthand the media bias Trump was up against.
At one point, the people are behind the press, so to get the paper towels to the people who wanted them, he threw it over the head of the press and to the folks waiting behind. So that became symbolic of how insensitive and narcissistic he was. The fact of the matter is, he couldn't get the supplies to the people because the press was in the way. They made such a fuss about it. It really was very cruel, very unfair.
It would only be a few hours until Trump had to deal with another crisis.
As soon as we landed, he had to go to Las Vegas.
Those are gunshots, and this is a Fox News alert. That was the moment of horror unfolding overnight in Las Vegas.
He went from tragedy to tragedy. I felt very sorry for him, no rest for the weary. But he was undaunted by his presidential responsibilities. He was eager to work.
The CEO, President Kellyanne says, saw different perspectives when working through decisions.
He was very engaged with the vice president, members of his cabinet, members of his senior staff, and other outside advisors. Sometimes he had already made up his mind on what he was going to do, but wanted to use us as almost a checklist of, is there anything I haven't considered? Is there anything you want to say? And he loved watching us all argue together too, because he felt that was the way he would hear all sides of something before he made a final decision.
He didn't just consult members of his administration.
Every president gets their information from lots of ways. And the thing that Trump likes about the news and other things that he watches, that he gets different perspectives. And getting different perspectives is very important for Trump, because it's only when you get different perspectives that you can begin to choose among them.
So we're in a meeting about Afghanistan. He wanted to see plans for how to end the war and get the United States out. And he was talking about visiting Walter Reed and seeing soldiers. We're getting people killed over this, and what are we getting for them? And they were trying to explain in sort of geostrategic terms. And he was not really having any of it. At one point, somebody says, we'll get people like some generals, people who can really talk about it. He says, no. I want to talk to soldiers. They have to have served in combat over there. And I want to hear what it's really like and what they think we're accomplishing and what they've learned from it. So then he says the following. I love this restaurant in New York called 21. And the owner says to me, Donald, I don't know what's going on. Business is down and I can't figure it out. He says, get the waiters together, get the busboys together, get the cooks together, ask them what's going on. They'll know.
Once again, a leaker gave the story an anti-Trump spin.
A day or so later, there's some leak that says, President compares American soldiers to waiters, as if he insulted American soldiers. And he meant the exact opposite. I need to talk to these guys because they're up close and they know better what's going on than their bosses with all their stars on their shoulders. It both gives you a glimpse of how he thinks. He's the developer, but he doesn't always want to talk to the bankers and the architects. He wants to go to the site and put on a hard hat and talk to the guys. And he had that approach about a lot of this stuff. And the people around him, they not only couldn't understand it, right? They used it as an opportunity to unfairly insult him.
The show went on. December of 2017, President Trump signed the largest overhaul of the tax code in 3 decades.
The Tax Cut and Jobs Act repatriated trillions of dollars of wealth that were parked legally overseas, which gave tax relief to employers, to employees.
Next was another issue Trump had been warning Americans about for decades: China.
If they charge us, we charge them the same thing.
I think everybody understood that something was wrong with China. We were suffering dumping by the Chinese government, currency manipulation, patent and copyright infringement, huge surpluses. But nobody would say anything.
Trump reconstructed America's trade policy with China, but wouldn't stop there.
A lot of his agenda was in a way preventive. He could see the drift of where U.S. foreign policy was going and where certain foreign actors wanted to continue to drag it, and he resisted that.
Ultimately, Trump's trade deals, which defended American workers, would be praised by many conservatives as among his greatest accomplishments. But it seemed that every accomplishment was followed by a bump in the road. This time, it was a series of lawsuits filed by porn star Stormy Daniels, who went public with her story.
Daniels was allegedly paid $130,000 to cover up an affair with President Donald Trump.
Most of the things that Donald is accused of are things that happened before he was president. What Bill Clinton did, he was in the White House at the time. But I think that Donald gets too much blame. That's the only thing they can blame him for.
Bill Barr said that these attacks on Donald Trump were making him crazy and were making him less effective as a president than he ordinarily would be, and were dangerous ultimately.
On May 8, 2018, he pulled the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear deal, as he vowed to do in his campaign.
Today's action sends a critical message. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
Another promise President Trump kept was that he would open the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem.
A campaign promise fulfilled today, and with great fanfare, as the new U.S. Embassy opened in Jerusalem, 25 years after America first pledged to do so.
The first of 7 presidents, Republican and Democratic, who promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem and recognize it as its capital.
I'm a proud Jew and a proud Israeli. And I'm telling the president, Mr. President, no president has done for the Jewish people, the state of Israel, what you've done. And I want to personally thank you on behalf of my people and Israel for everything you've done. And the fact that there are some who are so uneducated that believe everything that the fake news media says, can even utter the words anti-Semite or racist about you, is absolutely a crime.
Lynn Patton, who went on to join the Department of Housing and Urban Development, said Trump did the same for other minorities.
Donald Trump has done more for Latino and Black communities than any modern-day president in American history. He gave the most money to historically Black colleges and universities than any president in history. He has released over 15,000 nonviolent minorities who were disparately imprisoned because of the 1993 Biden crime bill. You know, we had the lowest Black unemployment, the highest Black home ownership under President Trump, the highest median income under President Trump. President Trump gave the most funding to public housing than any president since 1997. I could go on and on.
In July of 2018, Trump had the opportunity to nominate another judge to the Supreme Court. He selected Brett Kavanaugh.
I will nominate Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court.
A pinnacle moment for the Trump administration was pulling the U.S. troops out of Syria.
We have won against ISIS. We've beaten them, and we've beaten them badly. We've taken back the land, and now it's time for our troops to come back home.
Trump was not an isolationist or a complete dub. He promised to, quote, knock the hell out of ISIS, unquote, and he did that. And he promised to do it without using a large U.S. force, and he did that.
While the Trump administration was moving forward with their agenda, Robert Mueller moved forward with his investigation. This time, that meant arresting Roger Stone.
6 o'clock in the morning, 29 heavily armed, fully SWAT-clad FBI agents, all brandishing M4 fully automatic assault weapons, arrived in my home in 17 armored vehicles, 2 amphibious units, and a helicopter to take me into custody for the nonviolent fabricated crime of lying to Congress. My attorneys had talked to the special counsel's office the day before. I most certainly could have turned myself in, but that would not have created the media circus.
A few months later, Mueller concluded his investigation of matters related to Russia's attempt to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. The result? Trump was never charged with a crime on this front and has never been since.
There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration.
Donald Trump came in and he ripped the scab of propriety off. And he said to the country, look at these people. They made the whole thing up, and then they used their contacts and shopped it through. If anybody had done that, they would be in jail. But it was Donald Trump, so the means were justified by the noble ends of getting rid of him.
After nearly 2 years, the investigation was over. With this looming cloud removed, Trump officially launched his 2020 re-election campaign.
Tonight, I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States. Thank you.
Trump continued his role as the unconventional politician when he became the first president to enter North Korea.
He didn't hold a grudge. He should have held a grudge sometimes, but that art of the deal style that you never know when your opponent that you beat may be advantageous to it. So he befriended the North Korean thug. He said nice things about Putin, even though he was very hard on them.
His friendly tone with the dictator wasn't applauded by everyone.
The North Korea situation was a bold move, kind of a gamble. Although I don't think he risked much. He was criticized, no president should meet with the leader of North Korea, it was said. I can see the argument for that. I don't think we lost much from that. And the situation is certainly no worse.
Despite the intense pressure and chaos of the presidency, Trump kept in touch with those who had been loyal to him along the way.
I could tell you one thing. The most important thing to Donald Trump is loyalty.
I had a radio station in the Midwest for iHeartRadio. Donald Trump, he was going to his helicopter. He stopped and stood on the tarmac in the Andrews Air Force Base and stopped the world for 45 minutes to give me the debut interview of my radio career. That's the kind of guy he was.
It was another surreal experience, showing up at the White House, like I'm here to have dinner with the president. But then he showed up and sat down, and it was just like, the many times that we had dinner when I was working in the organization. Same person. I felt that he really was paying attention to me. There's a lot of people that aren't like that, let alone people in his position that have the enormity of those types of responsibilities that go along with any presidency.
It had been 6 months since the Russia investigation concluded, and now another battle was unfolding. The Democrats began impeachment inquiries against the president.
Today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
While the president faced an impeachment trial, Roger Stone's battle with the Justice Department also continued. And on November 2019, a jury convicted him on 7 felony counts. He was sentenced to 40 months in prison. Stone maintains he was innocent.
They found no evidence whatsoever of any of those crimes. I would also point out that they found no evidence of Russian collusion, and they found no evidence of WikiLeaks collaboration on my part. So I was charged with process crimes. In other words, misstatements I made in my voluntary testimony to Congress. Now, I did make minor misstatements, but none of them were material, meaning none of them hid any underlying crime, such as Russian collusion or even collaboration with WikiLeaks. In this 2-year fight, I lost everything. My wife and I lost our home, we lost our savings, we lost my car, we lost my ability to travel, we lost my ability to make a living, because I make a living speaking and writing.
In December, the House of Representatives officially voted to impeach the president. Again, the president's resources would be tied up.
During an impeachment, and you don't do anything but work on the impeachment, or very little else. The accusation was actually completely preposterous, but it still appears to be a grave accusation that half the country is going to believe, and another reasonably large portion is going to not really know the details, but think, well, I guess there's a lot of smoke, there must be some fire, it sounds serious.
His impeachment really started before he even went to the Oval Office. The activists in the Democratic Party really were determined to tear him down right from the get-go and not give him any breathing room. He was fighting for his life from minute one. Russia, Russia, Russia. They were throwing whatever would stick.
But think of how much he did get done, all the while one hand tied behind his back, trying to comply with subpoenas, with investigations, with impeachments. I mean, his detractors have sort of emboldened him.
Executed a flawless precision strike.
Despite or in spite of an impeachment, Trump kept focused and carried out the killing of General Qasem Soleimani.
Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him.
Soon, Trump had another victory. He was acquitted by the Senate. He was heading into the 2020 election with a number of notable successes.
We had record low minority unemployment and almost record low 3.4 peacetime unemployment. We were growing at almost at 2%. We had very, almost too low interest rates. We had almost no inflation. The only criticism of that economy is we were running up deficits, which Republicans shouldn't do. But otherwise, the economy was booming. You look abroad, there were no wars going on. He had gotten rid of Soleimani. The Iranians were terrified of him. He'd got rid of Baghdadi. ISIS had ceased to exist. He had befriended Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia to round them up in a new alliance against China. Foreign policy was very effective. We were energy self-sufficient. We were not a net importer of fossil fuels. Price of gas was at a record low. So it was an enormously successful president. And then two things happened.
Trump seemed well positioned for re-election. Then, the unexpected. A pandemic shuts down the economy, and American cities go up in flames. In the beginning of 2020, the Trump administration was confident about the upcoming election. Think about it. The economy was booming. ISIS was on the verge of being defeated. The wind was at his back. But that momentum would come to an abrupt halt.
A mysterious and deadly virus has led to screening of airline passengers arriving at 3 U.S. airports from Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the outbreak. 2 people have died and dozens are ill with the pneumonia-like symptoms.
Early 2020, my chief of staff at the White House started to attend these meetings about some kind of health crisis in China. It was very opaque. Late January, a number of us, including me, were summoned to the Situation Room at the White House.
We didn't know where it was. Donald Trump had a gut instinct that, by the way, proved absolutely accurate, that it was from the Wuhan lab.
Trump had another gut instinct.
On March 2nd or so, 2020, we had a scheduled meeting with the drug manufacturers in the cabinet room. I happened to be part of that meeting. And I watched President Trump take what was supposed to be a meeting on drug pricing and turn it into a meeting about the vaccine. And he said, how do we get a vaccine? People need to be vaccinated. He never talked about mandates. He wasn't forcing anybody to do that. This is the once in a century pandemic. And he said, I know you're going to tell me it takes a long time, takes years and years. We don't have years. And the drug manufacturers, who normally are competitors, immediately became collaborators.
Unfortunately for Donald Trump, there were fixtures in the government that supposedly handled pandemics, and they were named Anthony Fauci, and the CDC, and the FDA, and the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases. And these career people were not friendly to Donald Trump.
By April, the U.S. had the most reported COVID-19 cases and deaths, becoming the #1 global hotspot for the virus. In an election year, many criticized Trump.
Trump was driven to the brink by all of the attacks. Here is a thin-skinned, maybe egotistical, narcissistic person, but the attacks so relentless, so vicious, that it really started getting into his head. It really creeped him out, and I think it made him a lesser president. Whereas if he had been more welcome, if people had given him the benefit of the doubt, I think he would have been a much better president.
To curb the spread, states across the country implemented shutdowns, which cost millions of Americans their jobs.
COVID-19 destroyed his signature accomplishment of a boom economy. And then secondarily, it really cramped his signature campaign style. Not being able to do the rallies for a long period of time, I think hurt his campaign very badly.
It seems things couldn't get worse for an incumbent running for re-election until an unarmed black man was killed in Minneapolis, triggering nationwide riots.
When the George Floyd death occurred, we had 120 days of nonstop riot, looting, and arson. 35 to 40 dead. We had 1,500 police officers injured. We had $35 billion of damage inflicted.
Donald Trump is going to win. It's not going to be as close as people think, and I've said that since the summer when his poll numbers were low. I still believe it today.
After all, Trump defied the pollsters in 2016. Could he really lose to a doddering, gaffe-prone Joe Biden?
Trump, I think, who is super confident, had every reason to believe that he would beat an opponent who, let's face it, very rarely left his basement and had trouble drawing a crowd of more than a couple hundred people.
I was there when Trump was assured by the people running his 2020 campaign, everything is fine, you will win every state you won in 2016 plus a few more. Everything was not fine. That just was not true.
But there were moments that seemed to be breaking Trump's way. He, Trump, caught COVID himself and, in what seemed like a miracle, recovered in a few days. And after liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, he moved quickly to replace her with Amy Coney Barrett, making social conservatives' long-held wish to overrule Roe v. Wade all but certain.
Tonight, here at the White House, President Trump returned to swear in his third nominee as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, a woman of outstanding intellect and character.
Then, 3 weeks before the election, the New York Post published a bombshell story that threatened to blow up the Biden campaign. A laptop abandoned by Hunter Biden contained thousands of images of his drug-fueled benders with prostitutes, an email suggesting Joe deployed his crack addict son as a bagman in a massive international influence peddling scheme. Though the FBI knew the laptop was genuine, a cabal of former intelligence officials, social media giants, and members of Trump's own Justice Department scrambled to rescue Biden by discrediting and limiting the distribution of the Post expose.
Joe Biden say, 51 experts say it's not. Well, they had cooked that whole thing up. Mike Morrell, as we remember, had received a call from Tony Blinken and said, can you get the old team out to lie, basically, and say that this is Russian disinformation?
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is
told.
where he's going.
November 7th, Joe Biden was declared the 46th President of the United States.
President Trump seemed more surprised that he lost in 2020 than that he won in 2016. They should have won outright and overwhelmingly. They should have said, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, civil unrest. You know, with the pre-COVID economy and energy and national security and foreign border security, crime was down, all of it. Everywhere you look, things were improving. Why would you change horses midstream? Why would you go for Joe Biden who's hiding in his basement? Why would you trust the vice presidency to Kamala Harris, who was even worse than anybody thought?
Trump couldn't accept he'd lost.
As the vote counting continues, the Trump campaign presses forward with lawsuits seeking to challenge the election result.
President Trump's campaign making a filing in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals after District Court Judge Matthew Braun dismissed a suit on Saturday, saying they presented, quote, strained legal arguments without merit.
Friday, November 13th, the president called me at my home in Cleveland, and we spoke, and I was very kind of consoling to the president. I'm sorry, Mr. President, it was close. You did a great job.
That apparently was not what the president had wanted to hear from his old friend.
Monday, the 16th of November of 2020. I called the White House operator, as I always do when I was calling the president, and he never picked up the phone, and she came back and said, the president's not available. And then I never spoke to him again.
On January 6, 2021, the day Congress was to officially tally the electoral votes, President Trump spoke at a Stop the Steal rally.
We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated, lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
But it was not peaceful.
Following a planned march to the Capitol, chaos ensued. The Capitol building was breached. Some rioters smashed windows, as you can see there. Others rushed inside. Some Capitol police, sadly, were hurt. Seemingly within minutes, the Capitol was completely breached.
January 6th was a terrible thing because of the optics and then what it represented. There was a demonstration, and Donald Trump knew there was a big crowd. He should have been more careful, but he did say, I want you to demonstrate peacefully. Don't riot. Of course, that was the implication. But when you put that many people in a volatile situation who are angry about the election, and you put them inside the Capitol when the Capitol's not open, then that's a dangerous situation.
I've been an early, consistent, vocal, visible critic about the actions of January 6, 2021. I never saw that was coming. I wish the FBI had and told us a little bit about it. That is their job.
I was so grossly disappointed that I pledged never again to support him for elective office, and I feel that way today.
The chaos unfolded on TVs across America.
January 6th was a day that was totally avoidable, and I do blame, in large part, the Trump 2020 campaign. The people running his campaign should have won outright and overwhelmingly the way they promised him he would. But instead, the opposite happened. And had there not been so much doubt in so many places and spaces and states about the election, there would be no January 6th, there would be no President Biden.
The House voting to impeach President Trump for the second time, charging him with inciting insurrection at the Capitol last week.
In a snap, Trump became the only president to be impeached twice. Had he been convicted, he could have been barred from holding office again. He was not. Trump violated another norm on January 20th when he skipped Biden's inauguration. The last outgoing president to do that was Andrew Johnson, who snubbed his successor, Ulysses S. Grant, in 1869. 18 months after he left office, Trump suffered another unexpected loss, a personal one.
Breaking right now, the former President Donald Trump says that his ex-wife and the mother of his 3 oldest children, Ivana, has died.
The only time that I really had any conversation with Donald since he's been in office was at Ivana's funeral. And Donald came right over to me and he said, "Can you believe that this happened?" He said, "After everything that we've been through, that this should happen." He was really distraught. So he took my hand and he was really reminiscent about how great she was and what a great mother she was. And I've never really seen Donald that emotional. You know, he was really quite upset. They were the golden couple. Young, handsome, beautiful. They just changed the whole face of Manhattan.
Meantime, it was becoming clear to the country that the 76-year-old Trump was plotting to run again in 2024. It would be his biggest comeback of all. The only other president to win a second non-consecutive term was Grover Cleveland in 1896. But it was also becoming clear, at least to the legions of loyal Trump supporters, that his familiar nemesis was arraying to stop him before a single vote was cast.
Earlier today, the FBI raided the former president's Florida home, Mar-a-Lago, while he was in New York. According to President Trump, the agents swarmed his residence unannounced, breaking into the home and even his personal safe.
Undeterred by allegations that he broke the law by mishandling classified materials, November 15, 2022, he announced he was running for a second term.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Trump is the heavy favorite for his nomination. I really believe he will be nominated.
Donald Trump's dominance in the polls in 2023 particularly is explained in a couple of ways. One is, typically when you want to hire someone for a big job, you hire someone who's already done that big job somewhere, somehow else. And many Americans are saying, that guy had the job and did a really good job, and I want him back.
Trump seems to be indomitable.
But Trump's legal woes didn't end with the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Not even close. Manhattan's district attorney won the race to become the first prosecutor in history to indict a former president.
Yesterday, Mr. Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, including transactions associated with alleged hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels.
Alvin Bragg came in as a prosecutor in New York. He looked at the case, campaign finance impropriety, said there's nothing there. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump, private citizen, says, I'm going to be president. And that transmogrifies into a 34-count felony indictment of Trump. So everybody understands that they weaponize the government to destroy Trump.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
The New York indictment is the biggest bunch of bullshit. I think that the Alvin Bragg indictment of Donald Trump is shameful. I think it is an empty gesture. It's made up, 34 counts of nothing.
Would criminal charges kill Trump's comeback or make him stronger?
A number of people were telling President Trump that the indictment's good for you. It's going to help you in the polls. It's going to help you get elected. I have a more nuanced view that I've shared with him. If ever you have a choice between being indicted and not indicted, take door number 2. Don't be indicted. That's not very obvious.
But his polls did go up, and they stayed up. Even after a jury ordered him to pay $5.5 million to E. Jean Carroll, who sued him for sexual assault and defamation in connection with an incident she alleged happened in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in the 1990s. In June, Trump was indicted a second time in Florida over his handling of the classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. And in August, a grand jury in Washington, D.C. indicted him on 4 federal charges tied to his effort to overturn his loss in the 2020 election.
And breaking right now, former President Donald Trump indicted for a third time. Special counsel Jack Smith says it's about the January 6th riot, except the charges have nothing to do with the riot.
To some observers, it was Trump derangement syndrome writ large.
I read through this so-called January 6th charging document indicting Donald Trump on 4 counts, 2 counts of obstruction, 2 counts of conspiracy. This is a complete embarrassment. At this point, they might as well hang a banner over that main entrance to the Department of Justice building tonight, covering the credo with Biden 2024.
And then
It's Tuesday, it is August 15th, and we begin with breaking news. President Trump indicted for an unprecedented 4th time in Georgia, alongside 18 co-defendants, in what amounts to a racketeering case related to the 2020 election.
Former President Donald Trump, the current frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024, is now, as of today, facing a total of 91 criminal counts in 4 separate indictments.
Trump's defiant Georgia mugshot is the first of a former president. If anyone thought it would hurt his popularity, they were wrong. Instead, his campaign raised millions by putting it on mugs and T-shirts. But Trump's legal woes didn't end.
In a civil fraud lawsuit claiming the former president and 3 of his children intentionally misled banks and business associates by falsely inflating information about his net worth and real estate values.
This case is a scam. So is it conceivable that he'll be the nominee of the Republican Party while under these criminal indictments? If so, he will wear them like a badge. He will use them as example of the political persecution that he's been subjected to. And I still think that he will be more than competitive as a candidate.
It's even conceivable Trump could be convicted and jailed in the middle of the campaign. If so, he'd be only the second candidate to run for president from a jail cell. The first was Eugene V. Debs in 1920.
All of these actions against Donald Trump now, the rape case, the fraud Stormy Daniels case, the Mar-a-Lago documents case, All of these cases, to me, don't amount to a hill of beans. They are all attempts to circumvent the electoral process and defeat Donald Trump without having to actually beat him at the ballot box. I predict that nothing is going to stick of any of these legal actions. It's all attempts by desperate Democrats to avoid facing him head-to-head and beating him at the ballot box. To me, they should concentrate on that rather than these attempts to short-circuit the process. Because I really do believe that Donald Trump should never be able to win the office again, but he should be defeated by the voters, not by politicians or lawyers.
Donald Trump is 77 years old, has a great life, he's a billionaire. He owns lots of golf courses and loves to play on them. He could just go do that. But that's not what he wants to do. He wants to go back and finish the job he started. And people see that.
I think the 4-year hiatus in which he runs again has given him a lot more space to think about what he's going to do and why he wants to do it. So it may wind up being a plus for Trump that he had this period of time.
Since childhood, Trump has been a fighter. And if his past is any indication of his future, he isn't going away anytime soon.
We talk several times a week. He always starts out asking me how my kids are, asking me how I am, do I play golf yet? And we talk a lot about policy, a lot about his accomplishments, an awful lot about the polls. And I know President Trump relies upon me and a few others to be his muscle memory, the amazing accomplishments of this first several years in the administration, particularly, and the successful and fun and just once in a lifetime 2016 campaign, which was like lightning in a bottle, magic. And he also knows that I deliver the truth to him, always respectfully, deferentially, but completely candidly.
The powers that be never liked Donald. They had their own game plan of what they were going to do and how they were going to do it, and Donald just came in there and shut them down. And they weren't willing to accept it, and they still aren't. They're never going to accept Donald. Donald is a man of the people. The people love Donald.
Because history is written by intellectuals, people on the left, academics, journalists, in the immediate short term, they're going to continue their disparagement of Donald Trump. He's the first president that was tried in the Senate as a private citizen. But I think in the long term, people are going to say the left overreached, and they weaponized the government, and they really came very close into destroying the idea of a nonpartisan, transparent government, given what we saw in the FBI and the CIA and the DOJ. And then we're going to concentrate on the actual record of Donald Trump. And that will be adjudicated by before COVID and the riot period after George Floyd, and then after. And I think it'll be a pretty positive appraisal of his administration, a positive appraisal of how he weathered this lawfare.
So who is Donald Trump? Love him, hate him, or however you feel. It's hard to think of a more incredible American life history. Of course, we'll need a lot more time to issue its final verdict on the man. That's true of every president. It's especially so when the last chapter is yet to be written. And as we've seen, what happens next with Donald J. Trump is almost impossible to predict.
They're back.
You are going to jail today?
With all new episodes. Cops. All new episodes every Friday.
Now, we've been giving you hints throughout the show, and it's finally time to find out who our mystery guest is. First, let's review the clues. Number one, before this year's Super Bowl, our mystery guest said he had butterflies. Number two, he shares the same jersey number as Mickey Mantle and John Elway. Number three, he played for the Fighting Irish. Now, this one is so hard, I'm going to give you a bonus one. He once acted in a movie with Burt Reynolds. Oh, come on, who could this be? Mystery guest, reveal yourself. It's Super Bowl champ Joe Theismann. Is he also the author of how to be a champion every day. Joe, first of all, thank you for being our very first mystery guest, because I know this is going to be one of the most popular segments on the show, and you're it. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
Laura, I'm flattered. I'm honored that you asked me to do your first show. I guess I've been a man of mystery for so many years. Now, all of a sudden, you officially crowned me a man of mystery.
Come on.
And I appreciate so much being with you. But yeah, those little hints bring back some very interesting memories for me.
You know, one thing I want to talk about right away is your start. And you grew up in New Jersey, and you were a caddy at one point, which was your first big golfing experience. Tell us about that.
I had no idea how to hit a golf ball. I'm still trying to figure it out, okay, all these years later. But I just was looking for a way to make some money. I used to work at my dad's gas station cleaning windshields and headlights for a little bit of money. I mean, a little bit. I'm talking nickels and dimes. And then one of my buddies said, hey, you know, why don't you think about caddying? I said, what do you mean? He said, you just carry around a golf bag. Don't have to do anything. Just walk around. I said, hey, I can do that. So it really, I guess, introduced me to the game of golf. But I really didn't get, passionate about it until much later in my life. But, you have to start somewhere when it comes to earning a living.
And how important is it for young people to learn, as my mother used to say, the value of a buck? Like if you got a buck tip back then, not to say you're old, Joe, but that was a big deal, right? A buck, that was a lot.
Hey, Laura, I just settled for 50 cents. Okay, that was a big deal at that point in time. I think it's so important that the young people today understand that if you work for something and you earn it, it isn't just a question of putting money in your pocket, but there's a satisfaction that you feel that you've accomplished something. I'm not a big fan of participation trophies. I just believe that if you work hard enough and you put your heart into it, that you're going to be able to feel really good about what you're doing and probably going to have some success at it.
Your first experience at Notre Dame visiting the campus, tell us about it.
When I went to the University of Notre Dame, it was actually a late choice by them to get a hold of me. I had already signed at North Carolina State University. Notre Dame asked me to make a trip out. I did. My host was a gentleman by the name of Rocky Bleier, the great Pittsburgh Steeler and Vietnam veteran hero. And so I was 152 pounds, 5'10", a skinny little kid. There were 13 other quarterbacks besides me around on campus. And I'll never forget going back home to New Jersey after I visited the campus. They worked us out at the Newt Rockne Center, and the coaches just evaluated us as athletes, because then what they did, they didn't recruit specifically a position. What they did is they recruited an athlete and they made you something else.
Wow.
I think of the 13 guys that were quarterbacks, 9 of them became either defensive backs, linebackers, tight ends, or something else. But I'll never forget going home and my dad said to me, what do you think? I said, I have to go to Notre Dame. He said, why? I said, Dad, I can only tell you that it felt right. And I believe this, Laura. If we trust our gut most of the time, instead of letting our head convince us of something else, we're probably going to do pretty well.
What made Parseghian a great coach?
His delegation of authority. I mean, Ari used to stand in this tower and you'd look up and go, there he is, the man. But he always allowed other people to do the job. He was very stern, but he was very caring. When you were called into his office, he wanted to make sure you were doing well academically. First thing he would ask was, how are your grades? Second thing he would ask was, how's your family? How are your parents? And then we'd talk about football. But he really cared about us as people. That's the way I felt that way. And I'll never forget, for his 90th birthday, a lot of us went back to South Bend. And I have a picture of me kneeling down in front of him because Eric couldn't really get out of a chair. And I'm kneeling and I'm like shaking his hand. It looks like it's like a papal visit. The only thing lacking was for me to kiss the ring. But he had that kind of reverence to me. The whole university has.
Oh, no, the dome. The first time you see the dome, the touchdown Jesus, but the dome. There's something about seeing that golden dome. And I didn't go to Notre Dame, but the first time I went, I understood why the students had such a special relationship and the alumni have a continuing relationship with that campus. Joe, you had a relationship with my former boss, President Reagan. And back in '84, I believe it was, he told you that the Redskins have brought this town together like nothing else has. What was it like to hear him say that? And can you tell us more about that meeting with Reagan?
It was such an honor, first of all, to meet President Reagan. That was the first thing. The second thing is we had, after the second half of '81, we went 8-3. '82, we go 12-1, win a championship. '83, it's 16-3, back to another championship. '84, back to another playoff. And just having an opportunity to have lived in the city of Washington from 1974 until that period of time, those 10 years, I always admired President Reagan. First of all, we talked about, the Gipper. That was his nickname because he played George Gipp in Newt Rockne All-American. And so for me, it was exciting to meet, I guess you could say, almost a fellow Notre Damer. But also to meet the President of the United States, one of the most genuine, real people that I've ever had an opportunity to spend time with him. We talked about football. Of course, he loved athletics. He loved football. And he loved the city of Washington. And he was a great supporter of the Washington football team. And, it was those conversations don't last as long as you'd really like them to. But, boy, you get a lot out of them.
What makes Tom Brady the greatest quarterback of all time? At least that's what everyone's saying.
Well, first of all, he's got 7 world championships, Laura.
Other than that.
Other than that, that's a place to start. I think what Tom does is wherever Tom goes, he brings a sense of accountability to everyone else. I said when he signed in Tampa earlier this year that he would bring accountability to the front office staff, to the coaches, to the players, because that's the type of a person he is, and that's the work ethic that he puts forth. When you watch Tom work and you look at Tom operate, how can you not do something like he does? How can you not try and do your job as well as he tries to do his? But the thing that impressed me more than anything other than an athletic standpoint is you saw after the NFC Championship game as well as after the Super Bowl, all he wanted to do was deflect questions to everybody else. And as he stood on the podium, it wasn't about Tom Brady. He was the MVP again of another Super Bowl. He won his 7th Super Bowl. But all he did was talk about his teammates. All he did was talk about the journey they went on and how proud he was to be a part of that football team. That's what makes Tom Brady so special.
Yeah, raising the bar and being a leader by passing the praise on to others. We all can take a lesson from that. All right, Joe, it's time for something called This or That. It's pretty simple. I'm going to name 2 things, and you just pick whatever you like better. Okay, there's no right answer. But since you're a Jersey boy, we're going to focus on things that have divided that state for decades. Okay, let's put 30 seconds up on the clock and try to get through as many of these as we can. We start now. Giants or Jets?
Jets.
Bruce or Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi.
Sub or hoagie?
Sub.
Wawa or Quick Check?
Quick Check.
This debate has broken up families. Taylor ham or pork roll?
Pork roll.
The beach or the shore?
Oh, well, of course, I'm going to the shore. The beaches are down in Florida.
You got them all, Joe. Okay, you got through it. We now know who the real Joe Theismann really is. Joe, this has been so much fun. I've been a massive fan of yours for so many years, and I couldn't be happier that you are our first mystery guest. Thank you so much. Congrats on the book and all your business success. Some of your golf success, Joe. I don't know if I really want to praise that, but but thanks so much for being our mystery guest tonight.
Laura, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to seeing you and talking again, but take care of yourself, and thank you for allowing me to do this.
All right, Joe Theismann, everyone. Now, we've been giving you hints throughout the show, and it's finally time to find out who our mystery guest is this week. All right, let's review the clues. Number 1, well, this apprentice hosted a reality show. Number 2, 5 Grammy nominations. Number 3, he's half of a dynamic duo. So who could it be? Mystery guest, reveal yourself. Those were easy clues. It's country music star John Rich of Big and Rich. We did the Democrat version, okay? Because you have to make it easy for the Democrats, John. He also hosts The Pursuit with John Rich exclusively on Fox Nation. John, thanks so much for being with us.
Yes, ma'am. Surprise. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Now, I want to start with something a little different because I think, if my memory serves me right, that your early dream was not necessarily to become a country star, but to become a team roper for the rodeo. Okay, first of all, what is that? And second of all, what would you have done if you weren't a singer? Really? Is that what you have done?
Oh, Laura, you're so cityfied. Come on. You don't know what a team roper is. So where I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, there ain't a whole lot going on out there except for cows and combines and agriculture. And probably one of the coolest things you could do would be to be a team roper. So one guy ropes the horns and one guy ropes the heels. They call it heading and heeling. And, you impress all the girls if you can head and heel. And so I used to stand outside waiting on the school bus with my lariat. And I had these plastic steer horns sticking out of a bale of hay. And I would go 1, 2, 3, wham, and throw it and pull it back. That was my original big dream.
All right. Now, you're also a college football fan. We share that in common. And your song, Coming to Your City, has been the theme for ESPN's College Game Day for 15 seasons. So how did that partnership come about?
Well, so, Big and Rich, we put out these big, high-powered, energetic country songs. We got this one, Coming to Your City, and College Game Day. Way back in the day, they said, hey, we're going to start going town to town. And that new Big and Rich song is perfect, Coming to Your City, because that's what we're doing. And we partnered up with ESPN. And, man, you look up and Cowboy Troy and me and Big Kenny, 15 years of college football, man. It's been pretty cool.
Okay, why whiskey and not tequila, John? You have your redneck Riviera whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Why not gin? Why not tequila? Why whiskey?
What's more American than whiskey? Come on. My whiskey is bottled, produced, and shipped right out of Louisville, Kentucky. We give back to the Folds of Honor with every single purchase. We funded 110 college grants so far. I've been a whiskey drinker. Country music and whiskey go hand in hand. And I have to plug it since you brought it up. RedneckRiviera.com has over 10,000 stores now on the store locator that are selling my whiskey. I'm pretty proud of that.
All right, John, you have a bar in your home in Nashville that is legendary, okay? And you claim that you write a lot of your songs there. I want to get proof of that. Okay, what exactly about that bar lends to your creativity and to get the juices flowing?
Well, so first of all, do I have a bar in my house or do I have a house in my bar? That's a big debate. And you'd have to come up and see it sometime. You know what? You should broadcast this show from my bar.
You've been telling me that. Let me just tell everybody watching this. John Rich has been telling me the same thing for about 15 years, okay? Like, you're going to come, we're going to have a big party, it's going to be great. And it's like crickets, you get nothing, okay? So now on national TV, I totally have you, okay? Totally have you on this.
The door's wide open, Laura, anytime you want to come. But I will tell you, I do write a lot of songs there because it's looking right at downtown Nashville, which is Music City. And there's so much talent down in that town. You understand not only who's currently there, but who came through prior to that. All the greats came through. And so to sit there, have a little Redneck Riviera whiskey, pull out an old Gibson guitar, it's a pretty inspiring spot to sit.
All right. Cash and Colt, those are your sons?
They are. Yeah, that's my two boys.
Explain the names.
Okay, so they're 9 and 11, Cash and Colt. Cash was named after my all-time favorite singer-songwriter, Johnny Cash. Nobody did it better than Johnny Cash. And as a songwriter, I couldn't resist the wordplay of Cash Rich. I'm like, this dude is not going to have any trouble meeting girls named Cash Rich, right? So then Colt, he was named after America's greatest gun maker of all time, Sam Colt. So if you put Cash and Colt together, their nicknames is Guns and Money, okay?
I knew it. Okay, I was able to figure that out pretty easily, but I just needed to hear that from you. All right, John, it's time for this or that, and the game is pretty simple. I'm going to name two things, and you just pick whichever you like better. There's no right or wrong answer, all right? We're going to put 30 seconds up on the clock and try to get through as many of these as you can. Okay, we start now. This is easy now. Johnny Cash or Johnny Carson?
Johnny Cash, the Man in Black.
Guitar toilet or guitar-shaped pool?
I'll take the guitar-shaped pool.
Which is more country, Texas or Tennessee? Ooh.
Ooh. I would say Texas, but Tennessee helped us out at the Alamo.
Barbecue, Texas or Tennessee?
Maybe got the smoke. You got the smoke in Texas.
All right. Well, I was actually going to go to one more, but we're going to have to save it, John, for your next appearance. Okay. John Rich, I'm glad you didn't go into roping. I'm glad you went into music, because otherwise we wouldn't be having so much fun. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you as always.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
I've been reading and writing good news stories for many years now, and I thought I had seen my share of spreading sunshine. Then COVID-19 struck as I was halfway through writing this book. Incredibly, I started to notice more stories than ever before about the kindness and goodwill of others. The funny thing about life is during the most challenging times and the darkest of moments, the goodness of others always shines the brightest. Carrie's morning started off like any other. Her daughter, Emma, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was just 2 years old. Every morning, she checks her insulin levels, and as every good mother does, worries about her daughter.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, your phone. Don't forget your phone. See you later.
Carrie leaves a sign hanging on her door for package deliveries with a photo of a stop sign that reads, "Someone in this house has an autoimmune disorder. Please leave packages and deliveries on the doorstep."
You're not going to believe what just happened.
What happened?
He sanitized our box.
Who?
The FedEx guy. He
Really?
sanitized the whole box. You can't even read the label. It's amazing. Like, who does that?
Really? Wow. What a nice guy.
FedEx driver Justin Bradshaw didn't know he was on camera when he went back to his truck to disinfect the family's package. It was just a small act of kindness, but it impacted Carrie in a big way.
You know, you should call FedEx, contact them, maybe tweet. You can actually tweet. If you go on Twitter, they have, FedEx probably has a following. You could tweet and maybe, you know, maybe they'll reward the guy or compensate him somehow. He deserves to be honored for what he did.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to go do that. Worms. I could get 2. I'll end up having to clean
Mom.
it and get it. What? What?
Look at this. This is their video.
Oh
Look
my
how many
God.
likes it has.
Wait.
Over 500,000 likes. Look
Holy
at
cow. How does that even happen?
that. Look at that.
Oh, I'm so glad that people are liking this. Look at that. Look at all the comments. Oh my gosh. Look at it. Look at this. Everyone loves it.
Yeah, and
Oh my gosh.
Thousands.
Holy cow. Oh wow. That's awesome, Alex. Thanks for showing me this. You should show Dad.
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Carrie's tweet went viral and was even picked up by their local news. The kind co-workers of Justin Bradshaw reached out to Carrie and connected the two personally. Carrie learned that Justin's daughter, Nova, was born as a micro-preemie, so small at birth that she could fit in the palm of his hand. This is the reason he took that extra step to sanitize the family's package. He simply told Carrie he would want someone to do the same thing for his family. You see, kindness, it's a skill, and it grows from our challenges. If you're a parent, what do you wish most for your kids? Of course, we want them to do well in school, have friends, be happy, and succeed in whatever they choose. But what about wishing for our children to grow up being kind? By fostering empathy and showing kindness to all God's creatures, as parents, we can teach our children that kindness is powerful and it can change the world. When Darius was 2 years old, he was diagnosed with a speech delay, a comprehension delay, and a fine motor skills delay, which means he wasn't able to do things as easily as other kids, like holding a pen or tying his shoes. Little by little, with the help of his sister and his mom, Darius overcame those challenges.
So Darius, you're really getting good at this.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while now, so I feel like I'm getting better as the day goes by, and I've been doing this basically for my whole life, so.
You're doing a great job. So what are you gonna do with all of these bow ties anyway? You've made so many.
Well, you know what? I think I'm going to donate them to the animal shelter. The dogs there need to look more cooler and more dapper, and they need a place of love and to have fun. So I definitely think I'm going to donate them to the animal shelter.
That'd be really nice. Make the dogs stand out so they can get adopted faster. That'd be really cute. And all of these beautiful bow ties, who can resist a dog with a bow tie that looks like this?
No one.
Shelter. How can I help you?
Hi, how are you? This is my son, Sir Darius Brown.
Hello.
And what he do is he hand make bow ties, and he wants to donate some of the bow ties to you for your adoptable dogs to wear during their photo shoots and adoption events to help them look more dapper and stand out so they can get adopted faster.
Yeah, and I came in today with a lot of different patterns, and I actually have a lot to choose from, and I hope to help all the dogs get adopted faster.
That sounds great. Let me bring you back to some of the dogs.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Over the years, Darius has made hundreds of bow ties and helped countless pets find their forever homes. His message for someone who lives with challenges: don't feel like you are different from anybody else, because you aren't. Don't ever lose faith, and make sure you never give up. The forecast always needs a little more kindness and love. And in Sir Darius's case, it did indeed come after the stormiest of moments. The empathy and kindness he spreads doesn't take a lifetime to achieve. All it takes is a momentary decision to do better. Facing hardships is the most ordinary thing in the world. Every single one of us is confronted with challenges in our lives that inevitably makes us stronger. But that doesn't mean navigating these tough times is easy. What if you could do one small thing, just one, that could carry another person through a difficult period of their life? Would you do it? If your answer is yes, then you surely understand how powerful we can be as humans when we are kind to each other. Seth Stewart loves Valentine's Day, but not for the reasons you might think. For the last 9 years, the 33-year-old has been spreading love on February 14th to strangers in his hometown of Spokane, Washington.
Colby's taking the south hill, Evan's taking the other half, the north side.
His goal? To make sure the people who are missing someone in their life are not forgotten. It all started when Seth heard girls complaining about being single on Valentine's Day and thought about doing something nice for them. Something simple, something like bringing them a rose.
Hey, Patrick!
Hey Seth, how's it going, man? You ready for a rose rush this year?
Oh yeah, man, it's been going great.
You guys pretty much ramped up, got a lot of roses going out to a lot of people.
We have about 500 different stops to make and 550 roses total to hand out.
So what made you think of Rose Rush? Like, what's it all about?
We started it about 10 years ago. My brother and I just delivered to some friends that were single women who were complaining about being single on Valentine's Day. It started with a couple dozen roses, and then people started getting wind of what we were doing. And here we are today. Now we're up to between 500 and 700 roses a year.
And this isn't a business, is it?
Nope, it's completely donation-based. Whatever we can afford just comes out of pocket.
Well, I'm glad we can help you out with all the red roses, but I gotta ask, how many drivers do you got delivering it?
So for the first couple of years, it started from 2 drivers with my brother and I, to now we have a dozen drivers. They're not paid, they just do it out of the kindness of their heart because they believe in what we're doing for these women in the Spokane area. Businesses are getting on board, donating gift cards, coffee cards. Restaurants are donating dinner cards to help give these women a Valentine's Day that they truly deserve.
So I want to send a rose to my buddy's girl who's deployed. How do I do it?
We try to make it as streamlined and as simple as possible. So all you do is get onto our page and just type out a message and say, my friend so-and-so would really appreciate a rose on Valentine's Day. All we need is a name and an address, and then we take care of the rest. One of the biggest takeaways that I've had from this is that one simple act can have a ripple effect that affects hundreds, if not thousands of people, just based off of one simple good deed.
That's pretty awesome, man. Well, if there's anything I could do to help push this further, let me know.
I appreciate it, Patrick. Hey, is Tara here?
I'm Tara.
Oh, Tara. Well, I'm Seth from Rose Rush, and Preston nominated you to get a Valentine's Day rose.
Oh my gosh, and Preston nominated me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. That's so cool.
You have a great Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Are you Jackie?
Yes, I am.
My name is Seth. I'm from Rose Rush. Your granddaughter Allie nominated you for a Valentine's Day rose.
I am so thankful for this. You have no idea. This really means a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank
you have a
you
good
so
Valentine's.
much. I will. Thank you.
Seth didn't start out to build an organization. He just took one thoughtful gesture and kept going. And guess what? It spread. No matter how big or small, our acts of kindness are so important. One small flower can certainly make kindness blossom all around you.
Hunter Biden is the most protected person in the country.
This barely functional human who's got this roaring crack addiction and roaring sex addiction.
Leaving meetings every 10, 15 minutes, smoking crack, snorting coke or something, in the middle of negotiating some of these deals.
Tens of millions of dollars. It came from the Ukraine, it came from China, it came from Russian entities.
And walked in a customer clutching 3 MacBook Pros. When I asked for his last name, there was a long pause and he kind of sarcastically added Biden.
There is a massive amount of material here that's very damaging to Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jim Biden.
It shows corruption at the highest level of the American government.
Breaking tonight, the third story in a row, there are new developments in the Hunter Biden email story.
When I got on the plane, I was running. I was afraid and I was scared and I left.
I probably said too much. The NSA will be on my ass.
Hunter Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, is both an enigma and an open book. He's published a revealing memoir. His shadowy dealings have been investigated by congressional committees. He abandoned his laptop with thousands of photos, videos, emails, and text messages that fill in the rest of his life of drug use, sexual depravity, and high-level wheeling and dealing, facilitated, as Hunter Biden readily admits, by the Biden name.
I think you have to begin the Hunter Biden story with the tragic passing of his mother in an automobile accident.
Hunter Biden has said his first memory is lying in a hospital next to his brother Beau after that December 1972 accident in which his sister also died. He was 2 years old.
The both of them were in the hospital, holding each other's hands, saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you."
Joe, only 30 at the time, had been elected senator weeks earlier and weighed giving up the position to stay home with his boys. He decided instead to take his seat and was sworn in from his children's bedside.
He made the choice that he would go to Washington and take up this very big career in the Senate. It was a prize that he would not give up.
Joe Biden made the 3-hour round-trip commute between Delaware and D.C. His sister and mother took care of the boys during those long days.
He has said that people encouraged him and persuaded him that it was the best thing to do for his children. But if you listen to Hunter, he certainly, I think, missed the fact that he'd lost his mother and pretty much lost his father.
In his memoir, Hunter traces his woes back to the accident.
I don't see that tragic moment as necessarily resulting in behaviors that lent themselves to addiction. That would be a cop-out. But I do have a better understanding of why I feel the way I do sometimes. It was a lonely place to be as a child, and it's a lonely place to be now.
When Hunter was 7 years old, Joe married English teacher Jill Jacobs. They had a daughter, Ashley. Hunter describes an idyllic childhood, palling around with his older brother and best friend Bo. But texts and emails on his laptop suggest a more complicated relationship. Hunter describes himself as
the loser brother, always following along behind a superstar brother, picking up the crumbs he left on the floor. All of my friends have always thought of me as a joke, and the clown that Bo took care of.
And Hunter underscored a crucial trait that separated him from Bo.
The biggest difference between us, I drank and Bo didn't. The first drink I ever took knowing what I was doing, or more accurately, knowing what I shouldn't be doing, was in the summer between 8th and 9th grades. The troubling thing, looking back, getting blasted and sick as a dog didn't scare me or turn me off one bit. Instead, I thought it was kind of cool.
Meantime, his father won re-election in 1978 and 1984 with a lot of help from his family.
Joe Biden, in all his political campaigns, always emphasizes the fact that it's a family affair, that, his sister is his campaign manager, that his brother is involved in fundraising. And that sounds like a great story, but the flip side of it is individual